All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to your second to last session today. Welcome everyone online who's here. I think this is the only live stream session during this portion. You're all welcome online too. I'm Eric. If I haven't met you yet while we're here in person, I am sorry about that, but I have had a great time meeting all of you these last few days. Today, in our last session, this is the public interest tech session. So if that's what you're here for, good. If you're looking for something else, you know where the door is. Go for it. We have Eva, Rich, Jan, and Quentin today who are going to talk through 3 presentations. You all know the format. We're going to have 3 20-minute presentations with Q&A at the end. So as you have questions, please use the Slido link and make sure to note who your question is for, if it is for a specific person, and we're going to roll through those at the end today. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Eva to get us started, and then we're looking forward to some great presentations. Go for it, Eva.
Just this one?
Yeah, should you be able to just, do that. Should work. Bingo.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Eva Oosterlaken. I'm here on behalf of the Civic Interaction Design Research Group, which is a research group at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. I was supposed to be here with my colleague Martijn. He sadly couldn't make it in the end, but also here on behalf of Esther and Jorge as well, with whom, we've done this research. I'm a designer and researcher who actively worked on this project, which we call Civic Social Media. More on that later. So the why we are working on what we're working on. So we believe that we need safe, trustworthy, accountable, and sovereign spaces online that serve civic communities and their needs. There's many, communities meet online for various reasons, and we think a lot of those reasons are really vital for civil society. We'll get more into that in a bit. But a lot of the current, social media platforms, especially big tech platforms that we have, aren't, really meeting the needs, or sometimes even harmful for the ways that communities are meeting. An example, which I'll get back to later in the presentation, is that even just in the Netherlands, we have more than 100 different groups on Facebook for people who are coming together to share experiences around bipolar disorders, super specific. And those communities, they really need each other. They're finding each other online, but the spaces where they're meeting, so on these big tech platforms, don't really fully support them. One of the reasons being that communities really lack agency and control, so they're really dependent. Everything might change. All of a sudden, there's no transparencies over decision making. These platforms are often designed for individual, not collective needs, and also often the commercial interests compromise public values. And there are many different alternatives. Also in the Netherlands, there is a couple of different alternative social media community meeting platforms that are being built. One of them is called PubHubs, and this was one of our partners in the project, and initially also the focus of the project was working with this platform. And PubHubs is an initiative from Utrecht University and Nijmegen University by Bart Jacobs and José van Dijk, and they basically are working on a lot of different technological innovations around especially privacy and authentication, which are really interesting and can help a lot in these spaces. But at the point where we met them and started collaborating with them, they were still missing a lot of knowledge about who are they actually making this platform for, what kind of communities will be active on these platforms, and also what types of organizations, public organizations, could start to facilitate these platforms. So who would be able to facilitate it and manage it? And these are the 2 research questions that we had going forward into this project, was really what are communities' needs, how can we improve the user experience of a platform like this, but also what type of public domains, so think about municipalities, but also libraries, health organizations, etc., might be interested in this kind of public civic social media. So before I go into more of the outcomes of the research, a definition. So what do we mean by civic social media? So civic social media are digital platforms where members of communities can communicate, collaborate, and share information in a safe, trusted way. These platforms are developed responsibly based on public values. They are managed in a sovereign manner by organizations and initiatives of a social mission. And there's a couple of underlying core values that we identified that are important for these types of platforms. So firstly, they are community-centered. This means that they're really designed for communities and their needs. Safe and trusted, so that's really about privacy, but also about is it a warm, respectful environment where people can meet each other. Responsible, so that the organizations who manage these platforms are accountable for decision making and for the public values embedded in the platform. Sovereign, so these platforms have to either be managed by communities themselves or by public organizations that have a strong social mission and work with these communities. And diverse ecosystems. So it's not about just creating single-off replacements for current big tech platforms, but about a larger ecosystem with different, also technological infrastructure and different applications that might sit on top of that share also protocols and build upon each other. And one of the outputs, or one of the things that we learned, is that for doing this research, there's really lots of types of different communities that meet online, and this has different implications for how you actually want to design for them and how these public values actually play out when you start to make decisions around user experience, but also moderation, governance, etc. So we loosely define these as 6 different archetypes. The first one being communities of care. So communities of care are support networks, groups of peers of shared struggles, ambitions, or experiences who come together to support one another, offer guidance, and exchange experiences. We also have communities of knowledge and culture, so people who share with shared interests, who develop knowledge and insights together and may collaboratively create or design things and share their creations. Communities of intent, groups of people who are actively working together to achieve a common goal, possibly through political advocacy or societal campaigns. Then communities of place, so people living together in a neighborhood, city, or region who want to share practical tips with each other, requests, but also really stay informed about local developments. Then community of constituents, probably a lot of the other civic tech that we've seen today falls into this. People who want to engage with official organizations and institutions, such as municipality or national governments, or are invited to do so by these organizations. And finally, communities of debate. So people who want to discuss diverse viewpoints on current issues and developments for collective sense-making and political debates. And these 6 archetypes, they really helped us to better understand, okay, how might you design differently, or what kind of decisions might you make differently? So we also defined 7 design dimensions, and these are really the things that you would make different decisions on, depending on the needs of the community that you're designing for. So I will just describe each of them briefly. The first one being governance. So is the control and ownership of this platform really in hands of the community itself or the communities themselves, or is it governed more by a organization? And then what kind of governance structures are in place to make sure that communities' needs are represented and that it's a democratic process? Moderation and content, so kind of a similar question. Who is making decisions about the topics that can be discussed, what kind of groups there can be, what kind of content is allowed or is not allowed, what the moderation guidelines are. Visibility. So is it important that this platform is out in public, that information is publicly available, or is it more important that people can meet in private and have confidential conversations? Authentication, are barriers to entry necessary to guarantee a safe environment on the platform, or is it more important that there's very low barriers to entry and anyone can just come in and it's easier? Personalization is about whether people are coming together to meet other people like them who maybe share experiences or share the same vision for how the world needs to change, or are people actually also looking for other types of perspectives? Are they going more outwards? Physical and digital balance. So does this community also have an offline component? If it's also an offline community, what is the role of the online platform in that interaction? And finally, connection. So is this a platform designed do people in this platform want to come together to form lasting relationships, to really build sort of community, or are the connections on this platform more fleeting? Is it maybe more practical, or you're maybe more coming for single purpose? So for each of these communities, and I will only share one example for now, we basically clustered different things that we heard through interviews and workshops of different public organizations. And so, for instance, and then you start to see how communities might want different things from the digital platforms. So, for example, for communities of care, it's really important for people to find others like them. They also really prefer it if if the person managing the community is someone that is also part of their community. They find representation really important. And also control over visibility is very important in these groups. And we also looked at, for different public organizations, so in this case, we spoke to a lot of mental health care support networks in the Netherlands. What do they find important, or what is it that is for them important when they're designing, in wanting to provide such a digital community space for these people? And for instance, here it was really important that they wanted to take responsibility over the safety. So they really saw their role as if I'm a mental health organization, then I can't just let the moderation go, because I feel actually a responsibility for these people's well-being. So through those needs, we started to see how maybe those could play out in terms of the different decisions that you might make on these different dimensions. So for communities of care, you start to see that with content and moderation, the ownership is really shared, or should be really shared, because on the one hand, only people themselves really know what kind of, let's say, groups or topics they want to discuss. So you can't really know that, and they really need a role in that. But on the other hand, because organizations really want to do safeguarding, moderation becomes really important. So it needs to be somewhere in the middle. And you can see how that kind of plays out on other aspects as well. And how that then starts to differ for instance, a community of knowledge and culture, which is often much less sensitive, let's say, than communities of care. They really for instance, on the visibility aspect, they usually really enjoy publishing things and sharing things with the world. So you get a very different, different space that you want to design. For each one of these, to make it a little bit more, real or tangible, and try to work out what might this then mean when you actually start to, design these platforms. We created a fictional story to try to imagine, someone from this community, if we know that, on these design dimensions, these things are important, or these are their needs. What might that then actually look like? And these are sort of fictional interactions, more to support the research. So they're not actually real things designed for a real platform. So for communities of care, we have Sophia's story. 2 years ago, Sophia first suspected that she might have bipolar disorder. She searched online for information and personal stories, initially to learn more, and later also to understand how other people cope. And then after a while, she started to really seek out more personal contact. She wanted to find someone with whom she could really provide mutual support and learn and grow together. So one of the interactions we imagined is a warm welcome. So in this fictional story, Sophia gets greeted by the moderator of the community on this fictional digital platform. And, oh, it should replay. I'll just do it like this. Okay, it will only play once, so you will have to remember it. So Sophia will, she gets greeted by this moderator, and this person, they also share in already this first message, also that, they belong to this community as well. They may be linked to their personal story. They introduce some of the guidelines, but it's really this sort of personal and not like mechanical introduction, which is, really valued here. The second one, the pseudonym. So Sophia, when she first entered, she's kind of scared. She doesn't want people from the outside world to first recognize her. In this interaction, we imagine that you can actually change for every group you come to what your visibility is. So you can switch between being yourself completely, showing your photo, maybe your name, versus a pseudonym or alias, versus being completely hidden, and thinking about, can we give people this sort of sense of control even within a community, depending on which group or which space that they navigate in. And the last one is, whenever she starts to long for this personal contact, she receives a friendship request from Maaike, who is kind of the same age as Sophia, and in this case, Sophia really wants to meet her, but she's not sure, is Maaike a real person? Can I really trust her? Should I start really building up this one-on-one contact? So via this fictional interaction, she's able to ask for verification on Maaike's age to see if she really wants to interact. So this was just a sort of sneak peek into all of this research that we've done. Also here with me, I brought some booklets which have actually all the different archetypes in there, and also a link to the full publications. If you're interested, you can grab one, or you can come talk to me later. We're also, we developed a sort of card deck toolkit, which is something that we are testing out, actually starting on Friday at Public Spaces, which is another conference in Amsterdam, and which public organizations, for instance, can start to use to think about, okay, what are actually our, many of them desire creating some kind of better digital environment for their communities that they can start with, but also could be interested for designers that work on these kind of platforms. So that's one thing that we're doing. And another thing is that we've been collaborating with Public Spaces, with some of these organizations that we've done the research with, starting to form a coalition also around this topic of civic social media. So this research in particular really focused on the design, user experience of these platforms, but also thinking about the bigger picture. So what is everything, the societal conditions that are needed and to facilitate this, because it's much more just than the design. Thank you very much.